Astrotheology. Welcome to part 4. Now that we've established those building blocks, I feel that we can finally talk about astrotheology without the idea that I'm just repeating what Zeitgeist said. Well, now you can't say that. You won't be able to say, oh, that's been debunked. No, it hasn't. Remember, I'm not saying that Jesus isn't real. What I'm saying is that the origins of Christianity lie in paganism and astrotheology. We will never wake up as a race until we understand that last statement. It's so easy to get lost in semantics. I try my best to get my message across, but communication is two ways. If you're being emotional, judgmental, and critical, then there is no way that you're going to try and bridge the gap. For example, I said paganism. Now, all the connotations associated with that word get applied to that statement. The witch burnings, the superstition, yet if you know more about the subject or are genuinely curious, a bridge can be formed in which you get the basic gist of what I'm trying to say. Anyone who is resistant, I'm going to need your help doing just this. Don't compare me to Zeitgeist. Look into what I'm about to present you and then form your own conclusions. In my video on astrology, I was connecting the similar connections between all religions, and people saw a similarity to the dark Zeitgeist and came to the assumption that our intentions were the same. See, here's what happened. Zeitgeist released the information of astrotheology with the intention to debunk Jesus and Christianity. Therefore, the both ideas got merged. Now, if anyone mentions astrotheology to a Christian, they immediately say, well, that's been debunked. No, it hasn't. I'm not trying to debunk Jesus. What I want to do is show how Christianity is based on astrotheology and paganism. See, there's a difference. I'm not saying Jesus is a pagan god, but that Christianity itself is based on paganism. There is no denying this. Okay, so what is astrotheology? Other names include sidereal mythology, astromancy, Sabianism, uranography, the religion of the stars, the secret esoteric wisdom of the ancients. This is the ancient science that, according to the Egyptians, is over 100,000 years old. Another proof that astrology is of the ancient ancestry is the fact that the ancients were aware of the precession of the equinox. If it takes 26,000 years, then they must have been observing it with keen detail for even longer. The mainstream definition is that the precession of the equinox is based on the tilt of the Earth. If the Earth is spinning and flying through space, then explain how the constellations have stayed the same. Why did the ancients think they possessed spiritual power? From Hermes, quote, "The power of all things below originated in the stars and constellations of the heavens, and that all these powers are poured down into all things below by the circle called Alar, which is, they said, the first circle of the constellations." End quote. Who knows? It could be that the precession of the equinox is a gradual offset of the entire celestial spheres. I'm not trying to dive deep into the exact model, however, I do want you to question your reality. Astrotheology does not make sense on a globe model, Big Bang, random universe model. Here's why. The idea that the cosmos and the personality are integrated, or that mind has some type of influence or superiority to matter, is not possible in the modern worldview. Scientism is telling us we live on a spinning globe. Scientism is telling us magic is for whack jobs. Scientism is telling us that we're flying through space and we came from a Big Bang. This is all connected with the belief that the Earth is a globe. Therefore, if you believe in magic or mind over matter, you are contrasting mainstream science. Mainstream science believes that consciousness came after matter, therefore contradicting the main teachings of the sacred mystery schools. Matter is but an aspect of mind, therefore magic is possible. That is how the science of astrology, or astrotheology, developed. For the planets created our material realm, and our mind. The planets are without, and within. That is what consciousness is, the different attributes of God playing on one another. For this is the zodiac, but a journey through the human soul. There is no denying that every religion was influenced by this sacred teaching. Forget about the dates, forget about the idea of solar worship. There were all sorts of different cults. Just become aware of the idea that there was an ancient wisdom that led to the creation of the sciences, civilization, and our modern way of life. This is magic. Does man have an influence over the stars? Or is he lost to a destiny that is out of his control? Yet, isn't reality just a figment of our imaginations? Quote, "As long as you still experience the stars as something above the head, you lack the eye of knowledge." Quote, "Perhaps there is a pattern set up in the heavens for one who desires to see it, and having seen it, to find one in himself." Quote, "The early church fathers prohibited astrology and the Great Council of Toledo banned it forever. Nevertheless, 600 years later, the dates of the Pope's coronation were determined by the zodiac. The church hierarchy employed their own astrologers, and signs of the zodiac appeared all over the church furnishings, tiles, doorways, manuscripts, and baptismal fonts. The Jesus mediated to us by the church is not the true Jesus. That is an artificial construction assembled from true and false fragments of his biography, from authentic and invalid statements, and based on a great deal of inventiveness on the part of the Christian writers." Quote, "The religious teaching presented in Paul's epistles is fundamentally different from what research has recognized as being authentic sayings of Jesus. What we know as Christianity today is not the teaching contained in these authentic sayings. It is the theology disseminated by Paul and the doctorers of his epistles." Quote, "It was Rudolf Bultmann, the German biblical scholar, who cited certain passages in the Gospels as interpolations of Sophia herself, put into the mouth of Christ. Why was Gnostic literature removed from the Bible? The Anointed One. The word Christ means the Anointed. Know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, and until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. After the 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be put to death and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed." In ancient Palestine tradition, it would seem kings, political, and military chiefs, village heads, and in fact any claimants to high office, were anointed and hence called the Anointed Ones. Some, after anointing, then became called Lord. Quote, "Origen, Epiphanius, and Julian the Emperor all clearly reveal that John the Baptist, Judas, and Jesus' cousin was a Christ figure, but made no references to Jesus himself attaining that status. Bishop Theodoret, writing in the 5th century, provided further confirmation that Jesus was not one of the Christ personalities, although many others of his time were. The son of Poseidon and Medusa was called Christ, and the priests of Apollo were known as the Christes. In fact, the word Christo and its derivations, Christ, Christo, Kist, and Krishna, all appeared in every ancient religious system and showed the original Christo concept was believed to be the personal and invisible mediator and guide between God and everything spiritual in man. The Christ concept has been an ancient religious tradition continually suppressed by the Catholic Church through the centuries. Here are the 4 main ancient cults: the stellar, lunar, solar, and Saturnian cults. This is the reason that we're not aware of astrotheology. It's because of the ancient cults. All these cults are based on astrotheology, but they worship different bodies. This even ties in with shamanism and psychedelic cults. Each cult worshipped these bodies like a god. The Roman Empire gradually absorbed and adapted to its own ends the multitude of cults derived from all its parts, and over the ensuing centuries coupled them together as one, the Roman Universal Church. Today, it is called the Roman Catholic Church. Henceforth, much of the literature then written was aimed at propagating a fabricated faith to the world and ensuring Roman emperors were given places as heads of church and state. I don't want this to get controversial, so I'm not going to explain which religions belong to which cults. I just want to start up the topic for discussion. Just think about the days of the week. All the days of the week are astrotheology. Monday, day of the moon. Tuesday, translated to another language. In Spanish, martes, day of Mars. Wednesday is Woden's day, Odin, or in Spanish, Mercules, Mercury. Thursday is Thor's day, or in Spanish, Jueves, or in Latin, Jove, day of Jupiter. Friday, Spanish, Viernes, or Latin, Veneris, Aphrodite, the day of Venus. Saturday, Saturn's day. Sunday, day of the sun. Here are more motifs. We have symbolism all over the state in government centers. You see it in the civic centers. Think about the flags, heraldry, police cars, military. It's everywhere. We reward children by giving them a star for matriculation. We have awards and competitions, different tiers that can be achieved. We have money, movie corporations, modern churches. You can't not see it. Our kids sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, not knowing the secrets contained within. We have birthdays that is basically a religious holiday in which we worship the day in which an individual was born. This as well as an astrotheological motif. We have the zodiacal birthday cake with the flaming candles representing stars. We have board games, casinos, car companies, and I could go on. This knowledge is known and practiced by the biggest corporations. They are channeling these occult forces using subconscious sigils. These archetypal forms connect with the aspect of consciousness associated with it. For example, a business that wants to be successful may want to channel the energies of Saturn, as many do. This doesn't have to be evil, this is based on a sacred science, and I've explored the possible origins. However, we can use this knowledge to better ourselves and to fight back against this flood of ignorance. You may have noticed that the picture from Mindville is Thoth, or Mercury, also the symbol of an androgynous being. These energies have manifested clearly in the channel for all we wish is to teach and assist as messengers. Don't listen to the fearful part of your mind. There should be no reason why you're resistant to this material. It won't hurt you. I don't want anything from you. This is an attempt to make the knowledge easier to understand, more modern, up to date, a fresh perspective. Prove me wrong. This is not a new issue, and I don't suppose it will be going away anytime soon. Magic in the Bible. Occultism and magic is evil. I have to admit, I was pretty shocked to see the comments from mentioning Manly P. Hall. It became very apparent to me how successful anti-occult brainwashing has been. I'm sure there's much that Manly P. Hall wrote that I might not agree with, and I honestly think his stuff in terms of the New World Order is just another version of Socrates' form of government. Quote, if you were heading out on a journey to sea, who would you ideally want to decide who's in charge of the vessel? Just anyone, or people educated in the rules and demands of seafaring? The latter, of course, says Adiamantus. So why then, responds Socrates, do we keep thinking that any old person should be in charge of deciding who's in charge of the country? Socrates was not an elitist in the normal sense. He didn't think that an elite few should only ever vote. He proposed that only those who had inwardly considered issues rationally and deeply should be eligible to vote. We have conveniently forgotten the difference between intellectual democracy and a democracy by birthright. We now all have the right to vote without having been first taught wisdom. Socrates foresaw this would lead to a system that the Greeks feared above all, demagoguery. I'm not saying I know what the best form of government is. Some of the greatest minds have pondered upon this and spoken their thoughts on it. To me, it's not enough of a reason to stop yourself from reading Manly P. Hall's work. It's not enough just to say Aleister Crowley was a Satanist, or CIA, or Manly P. Hall, Luciferian, blah blah. Look, who cares? Many modern Christians think they can read one book and somehow gain wisdom because all they need is Jesus. Well, that is distorted and the root of many problems. We have sickness, poverty, depression, and many people lacking in drive and motivation. I am insisting this is because we have lost our knowledge of the esoteric arts, the true understanding of our world and its contents. But here's the problem. We aren't curious anymore. Millions of people go to sleep every night with their authorized King James Bible on their nightstands without a question of its origins or its authenticity. In the modern Christian's understanding, all occult teachings and other religious texts from other cultures are said to be false doctrines and deceptions of the devil. I think it's a misunderstanding, and so I'm going to try and set it straight. First of all, the Bible is an occult book. In the literalist interpretation of the Bible, the three wise kings were supposedly astrologers. The Magi are popularly referred to as the wise men and kings. The word Magi is the plural of Latin magus, borrowed from Greek magos, as used in the original Greek text of the Gospel of Matthew. Greek magos itself is derived from the Old Persian magus, from the Avestan Moguano, i.e. the religious caste into which Zoroaster was born. The term refers to the Persian priestly caste of Zoroastrianism. As part of their religion, these priests paid particular attention to the stars and gained an international reputation for astrology, which was at the time highly regarded as a science. It seems that the God of the Bible takes sacrifices, something that is seen as pagan tradition. Some pagan gods take only vegetation and incenses, but others are known to take blood. Abel's sacrifice was a bloody sacrifice, but Cain offered only vegetation. Exodus, chapter 22, verse 29. For thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits, and of thy liquors, the firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. In the Bible, Belief in the immortality of the soul is a second crucial presupposition necessary for occultism. Spiritism and necromancy is founded on a conviction that the living may contact the souls or spirits of the dead person. Sorcery, killing with magic in the name of God, smiting. In Samuel, quote, "Thus saith the Lord, now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and women, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass." And Saul smote the Amalekites and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. From Wikipedia. In the Hebrew Bible, the Witch of Endor is a woman Saul consulted to summon the spirit of prophet Samuel in the 20th chapter of the first book of Samuel, in order to receive advice against the Philistines in battle after his prior attempts to consult God through sacred laws and prophets had failed. Samuel's spirit appears to Saul. However, the witch screams and is frightened by Saul's appearance because God is the one who summons his spirit in order to confront him for his disobedience against Yahweh. The witch is absent from the version of that event recounted in the Deuterocanonical book of Sirach. Later Christian theology found trouble with this passage as it appeared to imply that the witch had summoned the spirit of Samuel and therefore necromancy and magic were possible. There are miracles in the Bible: healing the blind and deaf, raising the dead, expulsion of demons, talking animals, temporary localized suspension of laws of nature, fantastical events, parting the sea, staffs that can turn into snakes, born of a virgin, water to wine, water to blood, frogs falling from the sky, and I could continue. Manly P. Hall wrote on many subjects, and every one of his topics are extremely beneficial. He wrote on magnetism and the occult properties of the human body. The difference with his occult books is at the end, you will have done a lot of critical thinking, not fearful thinking. Big difference, because, you see, I think Christians are special people. They believe in more than what is presented before us. They believe in an afterlife, miracles, love, and most of all, that Christ is their Savior, and there isn't anything wrong with that, but we cannot ignore the origins of Christianity, and Jesus is not the answer to every problem. We can't continue to ignore authors simply because they are occultists. That is just ignorance. Much of modern Christianity keeps people's minds in a submissive state. Many of them are constantly fearful or fearing God. Rejecting esoteric understandings is a part of the reason why our society is falling apart. Many of the people who do not understand magic are now using it against us on a daily basis. Remember, it's all about controlling the mental. Between the common man and the elite man, there is a drastic imbalance in knowledge, thus a drastic imbalance in power. We lack an understanding of the self. Science tells us that the occult is just a bunch of woohoos, and Christianity tells us that the occult is evil. And in this polarized society, you're either a member of an organized religion or an atheist. Anything in between is misguided nonsense to both dichotomies. I don't expect anyone to just go flip a switch and change their minds on these topics overnight. The idea that magic is evil, or even the creation of fantasy novels, is too prevalent among our society to just be washed away with one presentation. While talking about magic may no longer result in death, it often results in what can be described as social suicide. In a society where social politics rule, it's important to choose your faction. To me, magic is much more natural and can often be as mundane as anything else. It's simply the process from mind to matter. It's the aspect of creation from mental to physical. When you think of something and then you go and do it, you're basically doing magic. Words are magic. Speech is magic. Our whole society is magic. If you're a Christian, the whole idea of creating a business, or a corporation, or a corporeal spirit entity is that you are creating a magical symbol that will generate you money. Yep, that's a cult. Business is influenced by Saturn, magic is everywhere, so it doesn't make sense. Why are you so afraid to look inside your mind? Is it evil? Wisdom is not evil, and in order to gain wisdom, you must be open to everything. If you are closed-minded and in fear, the spirit of wisdom cannot enter. To end this chapter, magic's not bad, and even Nikola Tesla said if that man was to focus on non-physical matter, we would see improvement within a decade. Magic is a way to understanding the other side of reality that science has yet to touch: consciousness. Science can only chart the material world, but magic is the way to exploring the mental, astral worlds. Conclusion. I want to take the time to thank everyone who's watched the series. I'm very appreciative of all our supporters, and it really means a lot to hear from your perspective. I hope that this didn't come off as too offensive. That was never my intention. I wanted to make my point, but I wouldn't want to hurt anybody or to take away their way of life. We will end this chapter with a conclusion. We have shown the affinity between languages. It's up to you to decide the source upon which they are derived. Don't take my word for anything. Do your own research. The Phoenicians are descendants of the ancient Druids, or was but a cover name created by the Greeks to suppress their origins. The Hebrews manipulated the ancient alphabets. The Hebrews came after the ancient Druids, taking their knowledge and converting it for their own use. This is the source for Kabbalah, esoteric wisdom, Hermeticism. It comes from the ancient tarot, or symbolic archetypes of God. The Roman wars became the method in which the knowledge of the Hebrew priest became integrated with their plan for rule and power. This is where Christianity begins. They took the knowledge from the Hebrews, from the Druids, and with the deep esoteric symbolic truth, they created an exoteric system of control that was based on universal truth. They seek to destroy any establishment that would contradict this system of control. This is why the libraries of the world were destroyed, to destroy the old church. Christianity is paganism, or in other words, the ancient Irish or Aryan church. The Gaelic language is Hebrew, Korean, Sumerian, Dravidic, Ainu, Northern American Indian, Vedic, Greek, Latin, and more. The ancient Druids are the true source of language, the arts, sciences, and civilization. Let's not get confused in semantics. The ancient Druids, the ancient inhabitants of Ireland, the Hyperboreans, they are the true source of Christianity. Begin your research, and falsities shall be unveiled.
Let go of everything you think to be true. Relax the mind and ask the question, do I truly understand what this reality is?